All right, so the project for this video is some potable water work. So we were taking the coach out for our first camping trip last weekend, and I filled up the potable water and I turned on the pump to make sure everything was working and there weren't any leaks, and there was a huge leak. So what I found was we had an accumulator tank, and even though I drained the water system, I didn't open this up and drain the accumulator tank. And this is, I'm not sure what kind of accumulator tank this is. It seems to be just a holding tank. It was basically full of water when I found the leak and then took it out. So we ended up basically just hose clamping off the hose that went to that, and went on our camping trip without the accumulator. The pump worked fine. We still had some leaks, and so there's quite a few kind of crisscross hoses and things. It makes sense, it works, but there seems to be some maybe extra connections or things that could be reorganized a little bit. And so I got a new accumulator. I did some research, and this is one that lots of people seem to use for GMC Motorhomes. This is, well, I think I'll mount it like this, but it is a SureFlow accumulator. I'll put a link in the description of the video for this. And this one can be pressurized to a certain PSI based on the pressure that you want in your system and the capacity of your pump. So I'll maybe have to do a little research to see what our pressure is like to decide what I set this at. I think when I ordered it, it was set at 20 or 30 PSI, which may be fine just the way it is, but I think it is nice to have accumulator. It gives basically just a little bit of extra capacity in the system and helps the pump not have to cycle so much. And so lots of people have said it helps with the overall life of your pump. So I think since we had one, I think it's good to get a new one. I also got a little screen filter, and so this would go upstream from the pump. This will go downstream from the pump, so on the pressure side. And this is also said to help with the life of your pump. So if you get a little something in your potable water, then this can strain that out, and you just rinse out the screen occasionally. So there'll be a fair bit of work here. We're going to have to take out the bench on this side over the water tank, take off some of the supports and things underneath the bench to get access to all this. I had all of this out not too long ago because I was working on the level sender for the potable water tank. So I guess the good news is I know how to get it all apart, and it'll be a little bit of a project. I expect this to take a few days to get things taken care of here, but in the end we should have a new accumulator, and I'll be able to fix all of the connections and make sure that we don't have any leaks anywhere else, at least back here. I haven't seen any leaks anywhere else, but I did see a leak back here when we were camping. Okay, it's time to start putting things back together on the water system. I finally got all of my parts that I was waiting for. I had to order a few things, but basically laid it out the way I'm going to put it together here. And I'll just walk through a bit. So we've got this 1/2-inch vinyl braided hose, and this will come off of the tank into this T. So it'll come into this T, and then it will continue on up to this fitting, which will go through the screen filter, the pump, the accumulator, and then out this side through this T, and then into the water system itself. So this is the fitting that will connect to the water system. I have this bit here in the middle. It'll connect to each of these T's, and this is the drain. I've got some 1/4-inch vinyl braided hose there, and this will go out the bottom of the back of the coach back here. And I've got 2 valves on this, so if I open this valve, this will allow to drain the tank out the bottom. If I open this valve, that'll drain the water system, the accumulator, and the high side of the pump. So by keeping both of these closed, the water will just go through the pump and accumulator and into the water system, and then use these for draining. For the most part, I got pretty much all of these parts at my local hardware store. the hose, things like that should be readily available. The one thing that's a little different, I got these fittings. These are SureFlow fittings between the accumulator and the pump, and then on each end. And I got those because I like the way they thread onto the fittings on the accumulator and the pump. So the pump had some brass or plastic fittings before, and they were kind of cross-threaded. The threads look like they're a little messed up on both sides of the pump. And I had trouble finding either plastic or brass fittings that would thread onto this, even though it looks like it's a 1/2 inch pipe thread fitting, where these SureFlow fittings fit on very nicely. They're nice and tight. The reviews that I saw online, people said that they worked great, they didn't leak. They really liked that they were easy to take off. If you wanted to, say on this side, run a line in to winterize, so pump antifreeze or the winterization stuff through the pump and the accumulator. This is easy to take off and connect on another fitting. So I like these for the connections here to the filter, the pump, and the accumulator. The rest of this I think will work out just fine. So time to start cutting some of that 1/2 inch hose, putting it together, mounting these, and we'll give an update once we get some of that done. All right, we've got everything plumbed in. We've got the filter mounted, we've got the pump mounted, and we've got the accumulator mounted. I set the accumulator pressure at, I think like 20 PSI. The pump runs at, I think 40 PSI. There's lots of calculations on how to set up the accumulator, and I just took a stab at it based on some things that I read, and so we'll see how that works. I'm not sure I'm happy with how high up this line is, because this is higher than the outlet from the tank over there. It means I won't be able to get the last bit of water out of the tank. I did open this valve with the pump on and pump water out, and so as far as emptying most of the water out of the tank, that'll happen pretty quick and easy, I think, by running the pump if I want to empty the tank. Overall, we've tightened up all of the connections. We've got no leaks. It seems to be working well. And so I think for now, we're probably in pretty good shape. We'll see how this works, and maybe there'll be more upgrades or adjustments in the future. Feel free to comment any ideas that you have to make this better, maybe things that you've done that you found that worked well, but we've at least made some improvements over where we started.